9:15, everybody, and it is happening. New York Comic Con is up and running over the Javits Center yesterday. The co-creators of the Graphic History of Hip Hop Volume 1 helped kick things off, participating in a panel there.
And this morning, they're bringing us all into the conversation. So please welcome Dr. Walter Greason, author and preeminent Afrofuturism historian.
That's right.
That's right. And Tim Felder, illustrator and OG visual Afrofuturist.
What are you working on over there?
I am trying desperately to draw images of both of you.
Oh my gosh!
I've gotten yours done.
Okay.
I'm still working on yours.
Okay.
I'm not going to show yours yet.
Okay.
I'll show yours in a moment.
All right, very good.
First of all, impressive title
Yes.
there. But what exactly is Afrofuturism?
Afrofuturism comes from a long line of critique that actually goes back over 100 years, where people did not imagine that it was possible for people of African descent to have history. And then that took decades to overcome that initial idea. But then what emerged was, when we looked at things like Star Trek or Star Wars, there weren't projections of black people into the future. And so another 3 or 4 generations of people like Octavia Butler and Samuel Delaney writing science fiction that said the future includes everybody. And that's actually what the core of what Afrofuturism is. And it's grounded a great deal in hip hop with folks like Missy Elliott, Andre 3000. They're all imagining different ways for the world to exist. And that's ultimately what Afrofuturism is.
So what did you cover at the panel yesterday talking about it?
Well, we were dealing with the Civics for All group with the New York City Department of Education under command of Joe Schmidt. And they brought us together 2 years ago, well, a year ago, and we produced a book. So yesterday's panel at the Comic-Con was covering all of their books. So they actually have a booth, a spot in the Family HQ at New York City Comic-Con where they give all of their books away for free.
Nice.
Wow.
But they were great with letting us not only sign our free books, but to do our graphic novel version.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
this is the new one, right? The Graphic History of Hip Hop.
Exactly, exactly.
What
It started out as a 22-page comic, and now it's a 92-page
They
graphic.
gave out 100,000 copies to schools
Really?
across the city last year.
That.
And the kickoff was wild. We went out to Queens and got mobbed by hundreds of junior high schoolers who would not let us out the building until we got their copies, until we signed their copies. And that's been the thing across the country, whether it's Louisiana or Minnesota, Virginia, California. We get swarmed like rock stars because people love the content so much.
Why graphic novel, though?
Graphic novels, like comics, it's about the fusion between the written word and pictures. Stories are much more easily conveyed when you have both of the dance between each. And people love comics, they love stories, they love visuals. And when you can present that to kids, as well as adults, it's easier to convey complex concepts within a sequential art form.
Looking at you guys in the panel right here, how do you take 50 years of hip hop and put it into 92 pages?
So it was so much more than just hip hop history. So everyone has learned the story of Kool Herc and the party up on Sedgwick and how the culture started to grow. But the real challenge is taking what I do as a historian and actually building in thousands of books that have been written about this time period and allow it to provide the foundation for what the actual story of hip hop is. So yes, that's difficult. And what we try to do to make it accessible to high schoolers is that, and I love Tim for this, I write a script, but it's based on the music. It's the music that drives the way the narrative moves. And then behind that is the art that then makes the emotional experience of seeing a neighborhood, seeing a person, seeing people break dance. There's an animation built into the book.
Whoa,
and so
really?
the last piece is when I add the history. And the history is always 20 words, 50 words. It's not these long, huge pages of historical content. It's just the key and essential point to understand why you feel what you feel about the experience on a particular page.
That is an amazing collaborative effort.
Yes, indeed.
Which could not have taken 5 minutes. How long? How long did it take you guys to put this together?
Wow, that's a deep question. Well, it was done, the script, Walter wrote the script, and it took me about 9 months to get the entire story visuals together, because it's not just, you're not making it up, you're actually having to do history. So in this book, I would say there were 200, 250 portraits of hip-hop operators, which drove me insane. But yeah, we got it done. So it took a long time, and now we're on volume 2 and volume 3.
Okay. So besides the origin story, what are 2 other key moments for you?
Two other key moments. So there's a lot. So for us, when we did the graphic novel, we start with both the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and that leads us up to the kind of spoken word poetry that emerged in the late '60s. So the late '60s history that goes before Kool Herc is really essential. And then I would say the second piece that I think people comment on a lot is when we start to talk about the global impact of hip hop. So in the mid '80s to the early '90s, the end of apartheid in South Africa, the way hip hop both championed a free South Africa, but then also celebrated Mandela's presidency, and the way that the world became more democratic through the early 1990s. That's another piece that people are just like, wow, I didn't know hip hop was connected to all that.
That's amazing. So how can folks get their hands on this book?
Oh,
You would
Amazon,
go to
Barnes & Noble?
Yes, www.graphichistorycompany.com or graphichistoryofhiphop.com.
Okay.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere.
What do you got on
Awesome.
that? Let's see.
Okay, I don't know, man.
I'm
I don't
scared.
know. Let's see, is this the one? We're gonna go that right there.
Oh, look at that!
What?
You know, of course,
That shot right there.
of course, I was frightened when I came into studio and saw you had
Wow.
glasses on. I was like, oh.
Uh-oh.
No, it's
We gotta
okay.
change that.
Okay. There he is. There he is.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. You
Full
nailed
GQ
it.
effect. Look at that.
Nailed it. You got that hair perfect.
Well, you got more hair than I do. Man. So,
That's good. Really
That's
good.
great.
You're awesome.
I
Thank
can't wait
you.
to
And we're going to have yours for you, Hazel.
Okay,
too,
whenever you
momentarily.
finish.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I got
When
it
you
done. I
finish.
was not ready to show that. I'm not doing
Okay,
that.
that's okay.
Good stuff. Great to have both of you here. Good
Thanks,
stuff all around,
guys.
right?
Love PIX. Thank you for what you do.
Oh,
we
This
love
was
you.
my
Guys.
favorite station growing
Oh.
up, so it's just tremendous to be here with you.
We
Picks,
like
picks,
hearing
picks.
that. We like hearing that,
Thank
all
you.
right? Get yourself a copy of that book, everybody.